delicious food and drinks. These were the common items that we had every time Raya comes around. This time, however, something sinister happened. This story happened to me years ago during the festive season of Hari Raya. During Hari Raya, we went out visiting our friends' houses. It's a common thing to do during this period, which is to visit houses and have fun. So, this story started when I visited one of my friends' houses. It was in the west. We were having fun as usual, eating treats which were prepared for us on the table and talking among us. At first, my friend's uncle seemed friendly, so I felt like there was no reason to feel uncomfortable. After a while, I noticed that he has been staring at me and muttering phrases silently under his breath. I ignored it and tried not to pay much attention as I continued talking and eating. At around 7:30, we decided to leave the house in order to continue visitations. As soon as I stepped out of the house, I felt a tremendous amount of pressure on my shoulders, almost as if there was something sitting there. I wasn't feeling too well afterwards, so I decided to go home early while my friends decided to continue their Hari Raya visitations. Once I reached my house, I felt depressed, not wanting to eat and talk to my family members. During that time, all I could think about was the face of my uncle's friend, but I couldn't figure out why. While I was cooped up in my room, my mother noticed something was wrong as I wasn't like my usual cheerful self. However, she just thought I was tired and decided to leave me alone so I could rest. I finally was able to sleep and I thought the weirdness would stop, but I was wrong. The next day, everything seemed normal until nighttime came, and that's when the feeling of dread came back. I told my mom about what happened the night before, and she offered to accompany me to sleep. But during midnight, I suddenly heard strange noises coming from the corridor. I tried to listen to identify what sound it was. It was chains being dragged on the floor. I was terrified and hoped it would stop, but I was so scared that I woke my mom up and asked her if she could hear the noises that I was hearing, but she said that she could not hear anything. The dragging noise abruptly ended and I couldn't sleep for the whole night. After what happened, I tried to forget it and fool my mind that it was just a coincidence. It almost worked, or so I thought. As night comes, I was sitting in my living room watching TV. It was approximately 10:30 and my front door was open. As I was watching TV, I was distracted by what had happened the previous nights before, so I do not have a feeling of fear at that time. I suddenly heard footsteps coming from the corridor of my house. I automatically assumed that it was one of my neighbors, so I did not pay much attention to the footsteps. After a few minutes, the sound of the footsteps stopped, but then I noticed in the corner of my eye, almost as if there was someone peeking at me from the corner of my door. I immediately had goosebumps and I tried looking towards my door. However, there was nobody there. Suddenly, a totally black figure walked past my door and I almost felt an instant wave of fear overcome me. It was almost as if the entity wanted to show itself to me. I slammed my door and ran to my mom's room, with tears in my eyes and struggling to describe what happened. Once I could partially compose myself, I told my mom what exactly happened, and she decided that it was time to see a Muslim priest, also known as an imam. My mom wanted to see the imam on the night itself, so she called him and asked if he was able to help out at this time, which was already 11 o'clock. Thankfully, he said yes, and he told us to visit him right away. Once we reached the destination, I felt a surge of anger and disgust at the thought of going into the imam's house. I struggled and cursed at everyone who tried to restrain me. My brothers forcefully pushed me inside the imam's house. Once I was there, I was almost on autopilot, as I couldn't remember much of what happened. My mom told me that I was looking at the imam's face, seething with anger. The imam asked me questions like what happened and is there something inside of my body? I did not answer and continued to stare at him. He then asked my family members to leave the room as he is going to attempt to communicate with whatever is inside my body. After almost an hour, the imam asked my mom if I had visited any place that could be seen as dirty or haunted. My mom said no. Then the imam asked, where did I go before all this happened? My mom then said that I went visiting my friend's house during Hari Raya. The imam then said he was communicating with me and he found out there was a jinn that was sent to me. This jinn is said that it was from a master that practices traditional Malay dance, also known as Kuda Kepang. The way that Kuda Kepang works is that a spirit of a jinn possesses the dancers, which put them in a trance. Usually the people who teaches Kuda Kepang usually practices black magic and keeps a jinn. It then took a few more meetings with the imam to finally get rid of whatever that has been bothering me. He told me not to share any photos, especially with that particular friend whose uncle practices Kuda Kepang. It was an experience I will never forget. So, thank you for listening to Supernatural Stories. This story is true, and please be careful. Please like and share if you enjoy this video, and do consider to subscribe for more. Good night.